1986, both Carmen and Al Snedeker were extremely exhausted and frustrated from the long-distance commute from New York to Connecticut for a medical center. This trip, however, was unavoidable due to their son Philip's needing cancer treatments. After deciding to move closer to Philip's medical treatments and finding an apartment, Philip's personality drastically changed from that of a sweet and loving son to that of an emotionally enraged and sometimes emotionally unstable person. He claimed to be tormented by evil spirits in the house. His claims, however, were dismissed as hallucinations brought on by his medication. That all changed, however, when those same dark forces he tried warning them about came for them. This is the story of the haunting in Connecticut. Before we get into today's story, my name is Jennifer and I'm a psychic intuitive and a tarot reader. And if you're a fan of the dark and mysterious with a little tarot thrown in for good measure, then I am the girl for you. I upload 2 to 3 times a week on this channel, and if you're really a fan of tarot, you can join me on my other channel, Jennifer Walker Zen. So if that's of interest to you, I would ask you that you would like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so that you don't miss any of my uploads. Now let's get into today's story. Carmen felt helpless as her son Philip deteriorated before her very eyes. He was suffering from a very aggressive form of Hodgkin's lymphoma, and the constant 300-mile commute from upper state New York to the specialist in Connecticut was not only ruling on her son Philip, but was also beginning to take a toll on her as well. After discussing things over with her husband Al, it was decided that the best option was to move closer to his doctor, which meant the entire family had to relocate to Connecticut. This was roundly agreed upon by the entire family as the best option. Although difficult at first, she finally found an apartment large enough to accommodate her whole family. Carmen contacted the home's property manager and was pleasantly surprised to find that the rent was surprisingly within her budget. The home seemed almost too good to be true. The apartment was perfect. Not only was it a short distance from the medical center, but it was also beautiful. Carmen was stunned by the home's grandeur. It had beautiful hardwood floors, beautifully finished paneling, with a nice-sized kitchen. Downstairs in the basement was equally as impressive, with a large open space that was easily convertible into separate bedrooms for the eldest. Al was eager to see the new apartment, and as a result started to move some of the more manageable things himself. At first glance, everything appeared to be just as beautiful as Carmen had described. Even the basement looked great. It wasn't until further inspection of the back room in the basement that their positive sentiment drastically changed. There was unidentifiable tools laid beneath some of the shelves, and what was recognizable was extremely disturbing. There was coffin handles, a coffin lift, long rectangular blood drainage pit, and finally there was a huge oversized freezer. Curiosity gave way to abject terror when it finally occurred to them that their beautiful apartment was in fact a former funeral home. After this startling revelation, their first instinct was to immediately leave. However, there was also a realization that they were financially unable to, due to the enormous doctor bills in the conjunction with the move that had left them severely financially strained. So it was decided to keep the new morbid information a secret from the rest of the family. A short time later, the family moved into the apartment. Almost immediately, Philip and the rest of his siblings knew something was wrong. His sister began to be routinely visited by a phantom stranger in her room. Philip and his brother witnessed strange, ghostly apparitions walking around aimlessly in the back room. Strange voices and disembodied sounds became the norm. One of the more sinister spirits looked like a man with a pinstripe suit and white hair. This spirit could be felt and sometimes seen hiding in the dark, staring at Philip as he slept. Philip at one point became so terrified of his room that he begged to be allowed to stay at the hospital. Despite this insistence that what he was experiencing was true, Philip's parents dismissed his claims, suspecting his hallucinations as a side effect of his cancer treatments. When Philip's siblings reported what they were experiencing, they were dismissed as having an overactive imagination. The more Philip's pleas were ignored, the more withdrawn he became. Even his visits to the psychologist and priest he was receiving once a week seemed pointless, and if anything, only increased his dark moods. As a short time later, Philip's personality had drastically changed. It's unknown if his personality shift was due to the constant paranormal phenomenon that was terrorizing him, or if the shift was due to the medication he was receiving. What is not in dispute, however, is that his interest and taste transformed drastically. He began dressing in leather and became obsessed with death and the occult. His overall temperament had changed to the point where he became violent. At one point, he broke into his neighbor's house to steal a gun in order to shoot his stepfather. On another occasion, it was alleged that he assaulted his female cousin. It was at this point, when Philip's behavior became psychotic, that it was decided to put him in a mental institution. As he was being taken away, he began screaming to his mother not to leave him. After numerous pleas and promises to change his behavior, the last thing he reported to have said to his mother is, "Now they are going to come after you." After Philip was taken out of the home, things escalated to a horrifying degree. Apparitions that were once sporadic in their appearance appeared more frequently. Food that was fresh one day became putridly rotten the next, and in some cases even being full of maggots. One of the more terrifying incidents happened to Carmen's niece. She came running into Carmen's room screaming that she was being attacked. Carmen claims as she was pushing her niece back to see what she was referring to, she could see the perfect imprint of a hand underneath her shirt from the wrist to the outline of the fingernails. Confused and terrified, she immediately called the church and was told to say the rosary and to call them in the morning. As Carmen and her niece began reciting the rosary, they began instantly engulfed in a black cloud. The rosary bead lifted up over her niece's head and levitated and shattered. Demoralized and desperate after what she had just witnessed, it was then that she accepted the fact that her home was indeed haunted and reached out to the paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren for help. The family also made the decision that for their own safety, it would be best for everyone to sleep in the same room, which was the living room. Carmen was extremely susceptible to attacks during this time. Sometimes the attacks were so severe that she would be rendered unconscious. One of the paranormal investigators, John Zappis, claims to have had a paranormal experience of his own. During the investigation, in the grand hallway, he claims a foul smell came over him when looking up the staircase and saw something start to form that started to descend down the staircase. The apparition, according to him, said, "Do you know what they did to us?" That interaction led him to believe that there were things that transpired in that funeral home that were not natural, and that some of the bodies were being violated in some way and witnessed by the spirits. However, no evidence supported this claim and has ever been found. In addition, it must be noted that both former supervisors and employees of that funeral home have profusely denied any such allegation. Feeling worn down and helpless, Carmen and Al Snedeker, at the encouragement of the Warrens, decided to go public about the hauntings. The Catholic Church, when assessing whether a home is haunted or not, follows certain protocols. And the thinking was that making the hauntings public might get the church to act quicker. Going public, however, came with a certain amount of skepticism, and unfortunately for the Snedekers, the skepticism of their neighbors was extremely costly. Their children were harassed and bullied and physically abused at school. In addition, they lost most, if not all, of their friends. Carmen and Al Snedeker were called crazy, manipulative, and liars, and treated as public pariah. One of their neighbors even began keeping a journal of who entered and exited the home, and in some cases writing down the license plate numbers of the cars in their driveway. She also claims that the newspaper and television programs about the home weren't adding up. What's interesting to note here is that the people like this were continuously interviewed who had never actually been in the home but were certain it was all a hoax. The assumption being that it was easy to believe that Carmen and her husband concocted a story that destroyed their entire family, rather than to believe in hauntings. Eventually, after the constant press, the church did sanction the exorcism of the home home. Before the exorcism could begin, Carmen and her family had to sign a release saying that they would never divulge the actual ritual involved in the exorcism. According to Carmen, there were multiple priests and deacons involved with the exorcism, as well as a secretary that took notes. Several religious relics, along with the Madonna statue, were placed in various parts of the house. The exorcism mass was done in Latin, Hebrew, and English. It was alleged that during the exorcism, the house began rumbling, and Ed Warren began having chest pains, and in the final moments of the exorcism, there was a burst of bright light that brought with it a sense of calm and ease. 6 months later, the Snedekers moved from the apartment. Philip made a full mental and physical recovery with cancer completely being gone. Unfortunately, things completely fell apart between the Warrens and the Snedekers. It is felt by Carmen that to the Warrens, her family was just another case, and that they really weren't concerned about her children or her well-being. Lorraine Warren, however, disputes the claim of not being compassionate, but does admit that they were one of many cases, and that after it appeared that they were safe, they considered their job over and moved on to assist another family. Now that you know the story, let's get some answers. Join me in my investigation room. Welcome to my investigation room. I want to preface this on this is for entertainment purposes only. So let's dive into this case. I've asked a series of questions. The first question I wanted to find out was, did the Snedekers know that this was a former funeral home? So let's find out. I would tell you that no, they did not. That there was some kind of lying and some bad intentions here because of regrets about something that could change. The devil card shows in the middle, showing that there were some issues around that. There was definitely this cautious and defensive energy and some disputes around this, okay? So I would say, just to be straightforward about this, no, it doesn't look to me. There's definitely some issues there with them actually having solid knowledge about this being a former funeral home. Let's move on to our next question. All right, our next question is, were the Snedekers' claims of being haunted true? So I would say to you, yes. And I also realized here that it seems like after the situation with the son was taken away, it was like they had lost some kind of hope here. So I would say yes, from what I can see here, it does look like that they were telling the truth about this house being haunted. My next question is, was Philip's personality, was it changed due to him being influenced or possessed by spirits or medication? Okay, so let's dive into this question and see. I would say yes, he was influenced by the spirits of the house in a negative way, okay? But there were other factors here, some arguments, some disputes, and the sense of confusion for him, okay? And Nine of Cups again is saying that yes, there were some issues around the possession, and we see a new house, this building, and there was a surprise around this situation that caused a lot of despair. Okay, so yes, there was an influence, but there was also some other factors too which helped to change his personality. Okay, so I would say yes, but also there was other things. It was almost like a perfect storm for him. Okay, so just a lot of things just came together in such a way which caused this. All right, let's move on to our next question. The next question I decided to ask was, after the exorcism, was the spirits in the house brought to a peaceful place? You know, are they at peace at this point? So let's take a look. This is a really strange outcome here. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I would say yes and no. There are some spirits here that are still not at peace. There is still this sense of despair here and a lot of worry and concern and confusions here. We see the devil card energy is here as well. And definitely I see again despair, and we see something that surprising could happen here. But Seven of Cups is showing me, and Two of Wands and the Tower card, that big changes happened here, but still there is some issues here. Okay, so I can't say that these spirits are all the spirits there are completely at peace at this point. Okay, well, I wasn't expecting that actually for the final question. So yeah, I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. What are your thoughts about this particular case? And definitely love to hear from you guys for your feedback. And I look forward to seeing you guys very soon. As I told you guys, I'm going to be trying to release 2 to 3 times a week. So I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments below, and I will see you guys soon.